to the Invisible Cabaret podcast. I'm Ferrera Rochelle.
And I'm Rosie Verbose.
And together we run Invisible Cabaret, a performing arts troupe dedicated to opening up the conversation surrounding mental health.
Join us as we talk to some of the most bodacious burlesque babes, cabaret creatives and inspiring artists about how their creativity and mental health intertwine. Let's pull back the curtain and strip away stigma.
Please note, we at Invisible Cabaret are not mental health professionals. If you're affected by any of the issues raised in this programme, we've made a list of resources for you on our website, www.invisiblecabaret.org/podcast/resources. Yes, welcome to the Invisible Cabaret podcast. I cannot tell you how excited I am for this episode. I am fizzing with excitement. Are you excited, Roz?
I'm very excited. I'm also just excited at how excited you are, which is making me excited and amused. That's great combo.
Amazing. It's like a circle that never ends.
Yeah.
We have quite the guest for you this week. She is a burlesque icon. And we do not say this, she's laughing, but we do not say this lightly. 21st Century Burlesque magazine ranked her 15th in the top 50 burlesque artists worldwide in 2020 and voted her the number one most influential burlesque artist in the country. She is also a choreographer and an absolute champion of beautiful black girl magic. She is the soul sister of burlesque. It's Demis Noire!
Demis Noire! Hello!
That's awesome. I love that intro. Thanks very much.
Our pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing okay. Just getting on with it. Waiting for that lovely day that we can be back on stage, to be honest with you, and I can get out of sweatpants because I like tracksuits, but every day for a year.
Do you have more than one pair, or you just like?
I have a couple, but I do have a particular favourite pair gifted to me by the lovely Sadie Sinner from the Cocoa Bar Club. So that's the pair that I'm currently living in. So yeah, that's my favourite.
So you are playing favourites with the Tracky Bees?
I am. I either have a black pair or the Sadie pair, and I'm living in the Sadie pair at the moment.
Because I actually only have one pair, and then when I wash them, I don't know what to wear. I'm just like living in my pants.
There's no problem in living in your pants, my love. There's no problem at all.
That is true. I can't go to the shops. Well, I could go to the shops. Keep the burlesque magic alive.
Rhinestone that thing, babe, and walk out.
Doing some teasing in Tesco.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it.
So lockdown is not easy as a performer, particularly. How have you been finding it? How are you finding it now? Other than
Well, I have to, if you don't mind, I have to start sort of at the beginning because I think I've gone through, like most people would say, gone through peaks and troughs with it. So March itself, the diary looked really hectic. It was glorious, exciting, but there was like no days off. And I was looking at my cat, who's called Solo, just curled up on a ball as I was leaving the house and being like, what I wouldn't give for just a little bit of time for you. So then comes lockdown, and I'll be honest, the first sort of, I'd say a month, was all right. It was like the pressure was taken off because prior to that, and a lot of my cabaret friends were in the same situation, we were all working lots and running from pillar to post and, doing loads of things, be it whether they were in regular shows or whether they were going and flying to and from. Like, there was just lots of things happening. And actually, it just gave us all a chance to go, whoo, and breathe out with no there's a really strange, I'm going on a tangent, sorry. There's a really strange, I think it's not anxiety, but there's a strange thing that happens to my body, and I wonder if you feel the same, when my phone goes off, especially during work time, because instantly, and it's so subconscious, but I recognised it when it stopped going off, is that's, you're thinking that's work and I have to respond to it immediately, which is something I'm going to be working on going forward. But so I didn't have any of that. There was none of that, and for the first time ever I was almost left to, like, there was just no responsibility, nothing. You couldn't do anything. I couldn't do anything, so we just had to sit still, and that was all right. And the summer was okay. I enjoyed the sunshine. I was in my garden. I suddenly discovered that my garden had blackberries, and I went full blown blackberry picking. Yeah, I lived a Pinterest lifestyle in the morning. I'd get up, do yoga, have my blackberries. It was wonderful. And then I think when it got to winter and it got colder, that's when the tables turned, and I just struggled with the monotony of it all. There's only so much I can watch on Netflix. There's only so much on Amazon Prime I want to do, and there's only so much, and I can't believe I'm saying there's only so much drinking I want to do as well.
Absolutely.
So now I'm excited about getting back out there and mainly seeing people again. So yeah, that's how lockdown's treated me, in like peaks and troughs, where I've been great and actually really relished in it, to I fucking hate this. Like, we need to get me out. Like having actual moments of feeling trapped. Like real frustration of Groundhog Day and just being like, I just want to see people. And yeah, not being able to. So yeah, that's how my lockdown's been.
Definitely not alone in that. I know so many people, especially performers, who at the beginning were like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. Like, we all love working. We love working. But it's the feeling of, I can take a break and there's not going to be any repercussions. It's not going to damage my career.
Right, yeah.
It's not going to damage my networking. It's not going to damage my relationships with venues.
No.
Everybody's in the same boat. So almost like I'm off the hook for this one.
Yeah, I'll finally get that rhinestone in done.
Well, that's the other thing. There was also this whole, I agree with you, the pressure's off, not only for the reasons you just said, but also because you're not competing with anyone. And even the most honest you can be, really, about this industry is there are times when you're looking through social media and you're like, oh, I'd love to do that. And or if you do take a day off or a weekend off, you do find yourself being like, oh, I wouldn't mind being in that show. That's not off the cards because no one's working. Like, I was in the same boat as like these A-list actors and actresses and incredible burlesque performers, incredible circus performers. We were all in the same boat. No one was working. So we had a holiday, I suppose. That's the best way of putting it.
What do you think, sorry, it's kind of jumping very into the future, but what do you think the scene is going to be like when we're all allowed back in? You know, like, because there is that kind of pressure cooker of performers who aren't performing and there is no competition. Like, surely everybody's going to want to start the scene with a bang again. And like, what do you think that's going to look like?
I've thought about it a couple of times and I haven't got a dead set answer for you. I think part of it might be Hunger Games because we don't know how many venues are actually going to be able to open that are going to be able to cater to us. And so it's going to be a lot of people wanting to, you know, rightly so, needing to earn their money, needing to work. And I'm quite a believer in that this is an industry. And so there is, though I have glorious friends within this industry, it's an industry. And people need to make a living. So there will be a little bit of the competition, which I think will be good. We've had a year off, it will be nice. But there'll be a bit of competition. There'll be people probably now who are feeling the anxiety of having to come out with a bang when they may not have had the resources to do that. The average costume / act to make, including rehearsal, sitting down, having concepts, can be from the hundreds to the thousands. And you don't have the resources. You may not even have the space to run your acts for a period of time.
Absolutely.
Depending on where you live or who you live with. So I think there is a slight nervousness to, I want to come out the gate being fabulous, but there'll be a bit of reserve in terms of how do I do that and how fabulous is everyone else going to be, and am I going to be up to scratch with that? Like, which makes me sound like I spend half my time watching other people, which I don't, may I add.
Like, no, it's human nature, isn't it?
I'm fine staying in my own lane, but like I do think if I'm just being honest about having had conversations with the friends and people within this industry, if I'm being honest about how we're feeling, I do think there's excitement to get out, to get on stage and just let loose. And I know that the first, because it's the last time we were allowed out, but the first time that we're allowed to step on stage and our audiences are allowed to scream and shout and clap and not just sit there muted, is going to be the most euphoric feeling, because the one thing I think a lot of performers who work live miss, and whether they realise it or not, is the applause. or at least the shouting. So yeah, I think it's going to feel euphoric. Whether I think the landscape is going to change, of course it has. There are venues that are no longer here anymore. God, God bless Café de Paris, but which is just it's heart-wrenching.
No, I don't think we can talk about it because we'll all cry.
No, not ready.
So, there are venues that aren't here anymore. There are nightclubs that do hire a lot of performers that are struggling because their rents are so high and they've not been able to open. So, but then also, in the same breath, I also imagine that there will be venues we've never heard of, or restaurants that have never thought about it, that are going to start looking at us folk. Theatres might be will be open as well. So there's a chance to also give a bit of a rebirth to everything, and stuff that maybe was a bit what we call in Jamaica fuckery before isn't necessarily going to be there. Basically, because we can start again, we can start afresh, and hopefully it will be exciting. But I have no clear forecast. I have no clear forecast for my own journey.
Well, why not, Demi?
Come on, Debbie.
We come to you for answers.
I've got no clear forecast for my own journey out of this shit. So, let alone anyone else's. But yeah.
I mean, fair play. I am personally very excited, but I also know that I'm probably, knowing me, going to find it all a little bit overwhelming. Even just seeing people again, I think, is going to be... Like, my energy levels won't know what is going on after a year of basically staying in one place. Like, that's part of it too, right?
Well, yes, 100%. In fact, it links to a conversation my friend and I were having. There is a real chance of a lot of trauma or post-trauma once we get out of this, for not only performers but the general public. Because we've spent the best part of a year... I think most of us anyway, paddling like swans, trying to be like, everything's fine. I'm going to do 100 yoga classes and I'm going to, make banana bread and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. But you're paddling underneath, wanting to, stay afloat, be it financially or just within regards to your mental health. On top of that, people lost people this year. People lose people every year, of course, but to this disease, virus, fucking piece of shit that's been lingering with us. So people lost their, homes, people lost their jobs, and they may not have had chance to really grieve that. So actually, when we come out of this and there is that sigh of relief, there's going to be this lovely elation of being able to see people again. Then there's also going to be people who are going to be nervous to see people again and who've quite enjoyed maybe being inside and have got used to that. And there's also going to be a big percentage of trauma that we're going to have to work through as a whole. That is quite scary, but very real. If any of my friends are like, you know what, babe, I'm not up for hugging, I'm not up for kissing, I'm more comfortable in this space, then we have to respect those boundaries. And I hope people feel that they can, because the amount of euphoria that's going to be going around where everyone's going to feel like they want to touch people, even complete strangers, so be mindful, if you are going out, be mindful of that friend who still is comfortable with that space. I, for one, will be hugging people if they let me, with their permission.
For the record.
For the record, with their consent, I will be hugging people.
Yes. Hopefully we have learned something about articulating boundaries in this time, but it goes back to what you said before, like, in a way, it's completely baffling that we will have stuff to grieve that we haven't grieved, because you think, well, what else have we been doing, right? Like, we've had the space, but you're so right. We're just going from moment to moment at the moment, aren't we?
Absolutely. No, it's true. We are. I mean, you'd think, something, this is very small, it's nothing to do with grieving, but just to show the fact that it's not as straightforward as you've had time to sit on, you've had time to do nothing or whatever. I still got my tax return in just on time. But I've had a year to do it, but just on time I got it in. So I certainly don't think I've necessarily utilised the time in the way you would think you would. That includes grieving losses or dealing with the trauma of, like, I haven't been able to see my dad for a year because he is in Amsterdam. And so that's been really tough, not being able to touch my family and my immediate family, be able to hug my nan who is 10 minutes down the road. I have when this first happened, I was able to sort of see her outside her gate, and like she's a little West Indian woman, so she'd ring and ask me to bring her something from the shop, and sort of chucking bread over the gate, like and milk, and like, here you go, Nan. But I've not been able to see her. She's not been able to see anyone. Like she's not been able to hug anybody, and oh my God, the effects on that is, we really underestimated that. I think when they first said no touching or no that distance, I think we underestimated how much of an impact that would have on us.
Yeah, and that must be especially hard because I feel like a lot of performers in London haven't grown up in London. They're dealing with their family being away from London and, you know, the difficulties that brings. But you're a Londoner, born and bred.
Yeah.
So, you know, you've got family nearby. So that's a different kind of difficulty.
Where I live, I have family like two streets down. Like we're all in a sort of lovely mishmash of people being placed everywhere. So I'm not far from people. But where I've normally would have seen my family a lot more, we would normally do big gatherings and things like that. And we just can't.
Right.
So, but yeah, no, I think it's going to be different, ladies.
Yeah, for sure. Can we switch tacks for a minute, Demi, and talk about burlesque? And I'm really curious as to know how you've kind of kept in touch with the craft, because you have been performing throughout lockdown, whether it's, you know, online or whatever. And I mean, at the time of recording, you're getting ready for the Noir pageant. So how has that all been in terms of your mental health as well, kind of keeping that rolling?
I think it's been great for me. I know I've been very fortunate. I'm lucky enough to be hired by some incredible producers. A few people kept me afloat during this time, two of which are Tempest Rose from the House of Burlesque and Sadie Sinner in the Cocoa Butter Club. So I've been really fortunate that, be it there was a class or there was a show, be it online or when we were allowed to go out and to do things where we were able to do that, I was lucky enough to be hired by them, which has been fantastic. In terms of online shows as well, I think I was also really fortunate with that, especially in the beginning. I got to a point where I missed being on stage, and then here were people saying, you know what, do you want to perform in our show and do your acts in your living room? Which admittedly, at first, I was like, what? Right. But I did. And I did quite a few of them. And a couple of things that happened. One, I got to meet people that I hadn't worked with before. I also got to watch performers I hadn't seen before, which was really exciting. And my very first one, I'm trying to remember whose it was. I think it might have been Trixie Blue. I think it might have been one of her shows. And I remember rearranging my living room and sitting in my costume in my living room waiting to perform. And then when it was my turn, having my partner come in and stand in the corner so that I had an audience member.
Oh, that's lovely.
I have to stress, they are not brilliant when it comes to stage kittening. I hadn't briefed him. So I was chucking my clothes towards him and he just sort of stood there like, oh, this is nice. And I still won't ever get over having to pick up my own bra.
No.
Do you know who I am?
But it was nice. It just gave me a little injection of that loveliness of performing again. I didn't have the audience rush. I didn't have those but I still got the nerves. I still got that lovely surge of energy that you get when you're performing. And also I got to put my dinner on at the same time. So once I'd finished, I managed literally just in tassels, walk into the oven. I don't recommend, but... and making myself some food.
Don't try this at home.
Absolutely. And I also think, especially at the very beginning, it was really great for morale. Those shows that were up in the beginning, including ones that I wasn't in and ones that I just went and saw, they were great for morale. It was fantastic tuning into a show on a Friday night and watching, be it people you hadn't seen before or your friends perform. I think that was really great for us as a whole. So yeah, that was lovely. And like I said, yeah, I've been lucky with regards to the shows I've been able to do. I've been really fortunate, and I know that's not for everybody, and it's okay as well if performers didn't want to perform too. It's fine. you know?
Right.
People, I think it was in a conversation with Sweet Pea, I have to quote her because it was stayed with me, which said, don't worry if you disappear for a bit. Rock stars do it all the time.
Oh, I love
Do you know what I mean? They're not always out. Like, they do it all the time. They drop an album and then they piss off for a bit. Like,
Right.
do you know what I mean? So there is that kind of feeling of, actually, it was okay if you weren't on the radar, you know, and I think that's really important. That includes social media as well. I think there's a definite, especially during this time, there was a definite pressure to still be visible online. And a lot of our content, a lot of our craft was having to try and morph its way to being able to fit into your phone. Now, I don't want to be an influencer. I'm a burlesque artist. So, which, again, I have to quote, that was a Lolo Brow quote. Gotta give props where it's due.
No, love it. Love a footnote.
But I don't want to be an influencer. I want to, so there, in terms of an online influencer, by the way.
Yeah.
I had to be honest with myself and be like, okay, I could join TikTok, and I don't think there's anything wrong with joining TikTok, by the way. I very much enjoy watching it, and I could do all these things, or I could take myself away and maybe work on me and branding and all that sort of stuff. So that's what I've chosen. But I think there was a lot of pressure for people to still be visible. But yeah, and I think if it worked for them, great. But the only upside I will say about having to move digitally was the fact that now we can travel through time zones. So the Noir pageant is American, is based in America. And so therefore, you know, I've also been able to teach on the other side of the world via my laptop, which is incredible. So that's been amazing to be able to work with, or again, see people who I would never normally get to see because we're not in the same country.
Yeah, reaching a much bigger audience and getting to work alongside some more fantastic performers.
I'm also just fascinated about what you said before, Demi, with regards to like the competitive element. And I feel like that, especially if you're in any way dealing with visuals or aesthetics as dancers and actors and models and all the rest of it do, if you're anywhere sort of front facing, you're going to have that kind of self-worth soup of like, where do I stop and where is my creativity, and am I inspired by that person or am I threatened, and all those weird kind of thought processes. I mean,
yeah, but I think I feel like, I mean, please, I'm now going to try speaking for you, Demi.
That's all right. Crack on, babe.
I feel like you've got to be a really strong person with a really strong character and have a real sense of your identity as a performer and as a person. And I feel like when I watch a Demi Noire piece, I feel like I see you. And I mean, go finish your question, Ros. But
no, I just wondered how that feels on the inside for you, Demi, and whether that is something that, again, either regardless of lockdown almost, but like how that all fits in with your creativity and craft.
I very much understand my own branding. I understand the art that I like to create and where it comes from. I'm a believer in authenticity, which I think is a great help when it comes to comparing yourselves to others, because I can't be Betsy Bonbon, because Betsy Bonbon already exists. I can only be myself. And I think that takes time to pick up, by the way. That's not an instant thing for any new burlesque performers out there. That actually that's something that I think naturally grows with you. The performer I was at the beginning is certainly not the performer I am 8 years on. I think there is a natural competitiveness in the sense of wanting to be... You compete with yourself a lot, I think, more so than others. I'm always looking up. I always use that reference. I'm always looking up. I'm always believing that there is, in a good way as well. Like, I'm always looking at my friends who own companies or who are traveling the world or are pushing boundaries with their art form or are really paying homage to a certain era. Like, I'm always looking at them in awe and more inspired by them. And I think when you curve that so that I'm not threatened by them, but it's more so... I'm inspired by them being like, how do you do that? I think that's the biggest thing. I'm quoting loads of people today, but Beyonce once said that the minute you think you've made it, that's when you start losing it. And so I'm always in the thing of going, no, there's still work to be done. There's still work to be done. There's still work to be done. So it doesn't matter where other people perceive me, I'm always on this journey of being like, well, how can you do that better? How can you be more polished? How can you be more professional? How can you be more authentically yourself? How can you create art that's going to push people or push boundaries or really resonate with people who come to see you? So that's the competition that's the struggle I'm continually having, is how do I get better? Because I still don't think, and it's not necessarily imposter syndrome, I'm aware that I'm not a bad performer, but
You're all right.
I'm all right. I do all right. Yeah, like, you know, I'm okay. I mean, it would be offensive to the beautiful people that hire me if I sat there and said I was shit.
I love that.
Do you know what I mean? Like, because they know what they're doing. So no, I am good in that respect. However, there's always work to do. Always. It's never, and I think the longer you're doing it for, and potentially the more, and again, I don't want to sound arrogant, but the more you're working and possibly the more known you are, the less mistakes you can afford to make. That's how you feel. Whether that's true, but that's how you feel. I do stand by you're only as good as your last performance. So for me, if I'm creating a new act, it takes longer. It can't just be an experiment unless I'm in a place where you can have a scratch night, which is lovely, and you can have a play around. But even then, I'm still rolling on the fact of, people have seen me do this. And if I fuck up on this, and I don't mean falling over on stage, shit going wrong, costume malfunctions, that's a normal thing. I mean that your art doesn't land.
I get you.
Or it doesn't feel as authentic to you. That's the hard part. You can't have as much fun not much fun. You can't, I don't feel like I can experiment as much.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Which of your acts do you feel is the most authentic to you?
Oh, that's
the most
easy.
Authentically Demi.
70s. That's
Ah, yes, I love
We
that
love
one.
that one.
that was the easy one.
true.
70s. Though Josephine, of course, is like my probably most well-known act, and I love it. Of course, I do. Why would I not love paying homage to such a absolute legend, a literal legend?
Right.
But no, 70s. That act, coming from the childhood that I had with that music. James Brown is not somebody I just discovered. He has been with me for a long time. My dad is a soul man, 100%. So I was raised on that music. That was, in fact, we have our own, every Sunday, it's maybe a tangent here, maybe listeners don't want to hear this, but it's a thing we do. So because, as I said, my family are all fractured, we're all away from each other, no one's living in the same house. There's a particular radio station that we all listen to on a Sunday for an hour, which plays only rare groove and soul. And during that time, we WhatsApp each other, be it, I like this song, or do you remember this song from this time? So it's a
So wholesome.
Oh, that's amazing.
sounds so
What's the
sad.
radio station?
It's called Solar Radio, and it starts at 11. My dad always ends up texting us in the morning on a Sunday going, you know, it's going to start soon. Starts at 11 till 12. And it's really lovely because it's songs of my childhood. Like, I grew up with that. So with 70s and not necessarily the era, but the music that was chosen and the power behind it. That's what I like to believe that I am. Does that make sense? Like, I'd like to believe I am that person. Like, it resonates with me because I feel that it's sexy. I think it's powerful. When I think of when I think of soul and I think of blackness, that's what I see. So that's the one that feels the most authentically, this is me. And it's funny because when I'm in that costume, I get even more, and I'm about to go on, I get so much braver than I normally am in just, dungarees or jeans and a t-shirt.
And that's the sort of thing I'm assuming that you miss and want to get back to, or is that something that you've kind of put in yourself for all the time?
Oh no, I miss it. I do. I miss that power that I think burlesque brings you, even if you perform it to the tiniest of audience. I miss that feeling. I miss anyone who does burlesque in any form and at any stage. That experience of stepping out on stage and owning it And even if these are audiences that are like Wembley Stadium sounding, you know, the ones I'm talking about where it just roars and everyone's so excited to see you, down to people who are having their dinner and will look up at you a couple of times, because I think we've experienced both. That feeling of, I am who I am here, and I'm going to do this, and you're going to watch it. You're going to embrace it. And some of you might find this offensive, and some of you are going to feel great about it, and that's wicked. But on a selfish note, I miss that feeling. And I think when I was working before, because, you know, burlesque is my job. It's the thing I love doing, 100%. But it also is my job. And I am a believer of, once you've developed your act and you've worked on it, the minute you bring it to stage, it belongs to the audience. So how you feel about your act and that lovely adrenaline surge is what we're talking about in terms of that power that I miss, right? That feeling. There is a part of me that definitely believes that now all that matters is what is your audience, nothing else. So yeah, that's a big thing for me. I'm not a fan of self-satisfying performers. There aren't many, to be fair, but I'm not a fan of seeing that. If I see that where it's more for them and it's not for your audience, then I find that uncomfortable. No matter what your subject matter is, I think there is that level of going, who's this for, babe? Because it ain't for me. I'm a stage school trained performer. Like, I went to stage school, there's no hiding that. And, you know, it was all about the audience. That was what we were, that's one of the many things we were taught. So yeah, no.
I feel like you can always spot it as well when someone is doing it as an act of generosity, and when someone's doing it as like a look how great I am for me, self-serving,
and I'm just, that's not, I care about this art form far too much to see that. The joy is I haven't seen it a lot, but when I do, I get really annoyed.
But flip side of that is that I feel like you can see how much you're doing it for the audience. You can see how generous a performer you are, and that, like, I'm doing this for you guys, you better be paying attention, but I'm doing it for you. And I love that. I love it.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, no, and that, I miss all of that. God, I miss dressing rooms. I miss seeing people.
You miss dressing rooms?
Yeah, I miss dressing rooms. I even miss wheeling and pulling my suitcase through London.
Now that's when you know you're devoted, that right there.
Right, like, and I can't lie to you, I go through suitcases yearly, yearly. I'm yet to find a suitcase that can withstand London street pavements and stairs on tube stations, things like that. And many a burlesque performer will tell you the same. We go through them. And so I miss that. That was my workout. That was genuinely how I got. My arms are no longer defined because I no longer pick up suitcases. So yeah, no, I miss a lot of that. We'll come back.
It will. It will. It's happening.
Yes. And when it does, we'll be grateful for it.
Hey. Yeah. Oh, segue.
It's time for our gratitude section. It's time to get grateful and talk about what we're grateful for this week. So let's start with mixing it up. Rosie Verbose.
Yes.
What are you grateful for this week?
Now, the thing that's come to mind is, it maybe is going to change people's opinion of me, so I'm nervous, but here we go.
Okay.
So, as part of my escapism, sometimes, occasionally, I have dabbled in playing The Sims. All right? It's out there. I've done it on occasion. So, I recently rediscovered The Sims, having not played it for yonks. And I've also discovered that there is a whole community of people who fundamentally I don't think I understand, but I respect and think they're amazing, that make modifications for these games. I have learned a whole world of stuff is out there to add to the Sims games that I did not know was there, some of which I'm grateful for and some of which, honestly, I wish I hadn't learned. But I'm grateful for people's creativity, originality, and just that, like, I already thought I was a bit dorky for doing The Sims, and then people are like full on dorking out and proud of it, and I'm here for that energy. That's my gratitude.
Give us some examples of these mods, Roz.
I would rather not. I texted Rochelle last night, and I said, Rochelle, did you know that someone has made a modification for The Sims where they can get STDs, they can partake in voyeurism and orgies. Like, did you know this was a thing? I did not know it was a thing. I didn't install it on my game specifically, but like, if that's your thing, go off, I guess. Like, great. Just the whole world out there, Demi. The whole world.
You've got a computer game that is basically bringing you sexual freedom and schooling you on the likes of, you know, sexually transmitted diseases. I think that's genius. You can be grateful for that, babe.
Oh, thank you. Two sides to the coin there, absolutely. And also, I think just in general, I think I've kind of gone back to The Sims because of not doing the things that I want to do and being out. Every time I see a Sims hug, I'm like, yes, you enjoy that. Have a lovely hug.
Kiss him, you fool. You never know when you'll have to stop.
That is the vibe. That's very much the vibe. So yeah, that's what I'm grateful for this week.
Very good.
What about Demi Noir? What about you, my love? What are you grateful for this week?
I was thinking about this morning because there's loads of things, but I think given the fact that obviously when this comes out it'll have been a while off, but given the fact that yesterday was International Women's Day, I'm gonna have to say that my girlfriends, my friends who are in my life and it have kept me balanced through this time via, you know, telephone conversations, walks in the park, and I'm very grateful for them and their mere existence, really, in my life. I'm very, very lucky to have the friends that I do within the industry and outside of the industry, because they're some of the most exceptional women I've ever met. So that's my what I'm grateful for. There's loads of things I'm grateful for, believe me, but that's the one that was poignant.
It's nice to have a long list, and especially nice to have that kind of thing on it. That's the stuff life's made of, isn't it? And that's beautiful.
Absolutely.
Rochelle, what about you, my love?
Oh, I've been thinking about this one long and hard. I had a massive panic attack yesterday.
Bless your heart.
Big one in the middle of the street. Really, really bad about like body image and just being a person and being who I am. And it was just awful. Like, it was really, really bad.
Bless you.
So when I was thinking about what I'm grateful for this morning, the first thought was Matt, my boyfriend, my partner, who, you know, got me through it and, you know, was really supportive and really kind and really loving. But I've mentioned him before. And then I was like, what else am I grateful for? And then I'm going to get upset.
Oh, honey.
Go with it, babe.
And then I was like, I'm grateful for my body.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for my body.
Yes.
It you know, destroys me on days. No, it doesn't destroy me. The way I feel about it destroys me on some days. But it's not my body's fault. It's my anxiety's fault. It's not my body. And my body does an amazing job getting me from place to place and getting me up in the morning and getting me into silly yoga positions and, you know, all of this kind of thing. And yeah, I might not have the best relationship with it every day, but it is there and it's supporting me and it holds my brain, it holds my big old heart and it holds my big old soul. And I just... yeah. So I'm grateful for my body.
I love that. I love that. Yes.
This is shaking.
Yes, babe. No, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm sorry. You've won. Like,
yeah.
This,
You can have that one.
I think Sims mods, you know, that's still quite up
he's
there.
high up, yeah.
Hey, any gratitude is great. Big or small, serious or silly.
Absolutely.
It's all important. And it's the thing that's getting us through the day.
Absolutely. No, for sure.
So,
for sure.
Yes.
Lovely.
Thank you so much, Demi, for joining us. We've just absolutely loved having you on here.
Thank you for having
Been a
me.
delight.
Bring me back, because we ain't finished.
Absolutely.
I ain't done.
You demand it. Before you go, do you have, and I know you do, have anything to promote?
Oh, gosh. Well, to be fair, obviously what would have passed by that point is the Noir pageant, but of course, follow them on Instagram. I'm teaching in BurlesqueCon, which particularly this year will be online. So that's really exciting. And that is on the I'm teaching on the 24th. So, yes, feel free to reach out.
Of which month?
Oh, April. Sorry.
Oh, April. 24th. I'll book them all in, but just
Just in case.
I'm not very good at fabulous, ladies. 24th of April.
Right.
But what I will plug is please be sure to follow companies and artists that you like. Obviously follow the Cocoa Club, obviously follow the House of Burlesque company and what they're up to. Please use Instagram, Facebook to follow wonderful black burlesque performers that are in the UK and worldwide, because there are more than just a few of us. There are lots of us, so please follow through, share the love. That's basically what I would say.
Lovely.
Beautiful.
You can find the links for Demi's gorgeous work in the description of our podcast. It will be on our socials and all that kind of thing. You can find us there all the time: Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. If we're there, you're there. That's generally the rule. No, if you're there, we're there. That's the rule.
Yeah.
We hope that's the other way around, but who knows? It's been a delight to have you with us, Demi. Thank you, Frere Rochelle, for your time as always. Thank you, dear listeners. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Until then, be kind to yourselves, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye. This has been the Invisible Cabaret podcast. Thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, please reach out to us on one of our many socials. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Just search Invisible Cabaret. We'd also be grateful if you could rate and review the podcast and share it with a friend so we can continue stripping away stigma together.